HumCPR is a group of more than 600 concerned citizens, all residents of Humboldt County, who have come together in response to changes in the timber production zone laws, recently under consideration by the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. We believe these changes would take private property rights away from Humboldt County's citizens. With nearly half of Humboldt County in a timber production zone, we believe the proposed changes would put our forests at risk, damage our local economy, and threaten our citizens' ability to live a rural lifestyle. This video will address specific concerns we have regarding the public process related to the TPZ issue and the Planning Department's handling of that. Specific recorded comments and actions taken by Planning Department staff, in our opinion, proves that staff is purposely causing delay, confusion, and wasting the public's time and the time of our volunteer Planning Commission members. There is a long list of complaints from a variety of citizens regarding delays in permitting and poor treatment of those who the Planning Department are supposed to serve. This violation of public trust by the Planning Department is cause for us to be concerned that the current general plan update process is also being manipulated by Planning Department staff. The current controversy over TPZ lands began with the Palco subdivision issue. Had Planning Department staff recognized and properly described existing state and county laws that prevent such subdivisions from moving forward, this entire issue could have been avoided.
In light of that base assessment, the assumption was, underneath our existing rules and regs, they could go forward and there was nothing we could do. But it turns out there was another player in this picture. Palco could not happen. We wouldn't like it being housed under this Trojan horse.
We believe Planning Department staff was either ignorant of state and county laws or deliberately chose to ignore them. Did planning staff already know about these laws but chose not to highlight them because they eliminated the need for their TPZ proposal? The direction given by the supervisors and suggested by proper public process was to first gather recommendations from Humboldt County's Forestry Review Committee, Planning Commission, and public. Then, and only then, the staff was to prepare a proposal to be considered by all.
Make the motion that the board refer to the Planning Commission to develop, consider, and recommend to the Board of Supervisors 2 draft ordinances.
Instead of following the directions given by the Board of Supervisors, Planning Department staff only presented and presumably drafted their one-sided proposal, even though the Board of Supervisors specifically asked that the Planning Commission develop a proposal, not the Planning Department. We can only believe this was an attempt to force approval of the planning staff's proposal. Planning Department staff released a revised staff report with new recommendations regarding timber production zones, 5 minutes before a Planning Commission meeting.
It did come to us 5 minutes before the meeting, and we're trying to hold a public hearing to get everyone's ideas on what we're dealing with here. And if they don't have an opportunity to read it in advance of that, it's difficult for us to really have a proper hearing process. But I'm going to allow people that already spoke to speak again now that we have new information.
Public testimony had begun on the original proposal 2 weeks earlier, but because planning staff changed directions at literally the last minute, the Planning Commission had to hold a new public hearing. These new changes came so late, it was legally impossible for the Commission to deliberate and come to a decision, as neither the public nor the Commission had adequate time to review the revised staff report. As directed by the Board of Supervisors, the Forestry Review Committee crafted TPZ recommendations for the general plan update. These recommendations were to be passed on to the Planning Commission for the November 29th meeting. However, the planning staff's last-minute report did not include these recommendations. We wonder, was it because the Forestry Review Committee's recommendations didn't support the staff's new ordinance? Planning staff tried to justify approval of their new TPZ ordinance recommendations by stating that the Planning Commission had already reviewed the draft Forest Resources Policy on which the ordinance was based.
This is the general plan update process. You've reviewed the forest review chapter. This is a discussion of how to implement those policies, and so we feel that we are in the general plan update and that the board has just asked you to accelerate consideration of this particular issue.
They claimed their last-minute recommendations would implement those policies, yet neither the Planning Commission nor the Board of Supervisors had approved any policy which is legally required before an ordinance based on that policy can be adopted. After providing last-minute recommendations that forced the Planning Commission to postpone making a decision, the planning staff had the nerve to tell the Planning Commission to report back to the Board of Supervisors that it was the Planning Commission that couldn't get its job done.
Review this and deliberate and comment or say that you couldn't get it done, and that's the choices in front of you.
Planning staff tried to justify adoption of their new TPZ building permit. They said the current laws did not allow them to destroy unpermitted structures or levy severe punishment on those who had built homes on their properties without a permit.
And I think it may be the case that based on the amount of illegal building we're seeing out there, we may need to tear down one or two so that people start getting the point that we're serious about enforcement.
Fortunately, our planning commissioners did not fall for the bait.
And there ought to be a bit better way of dealing with that. For example, you could have gone to the Board of Supervisors and you could have said that we are having an epidemic of housing going on in this county without permit. Instead of just doubling the fines and say, go ahead, that we will stop and we will tear down those properties.
From the beginning, there's been little advance public notice regarding hearings. There have been last-minute changes to proposals and even attempts to remove items from agendas for scheduled meetings. Planning Department staff's report included relevant state environmental law. However, staff's written version of the law was falsified in that it was incorrectly identified and important wording was missing from the report. A period was inserted in place of a comma and text was deleted. This cannot be an accident, in our opinion. Here's a few comments from Planning Commission members regarding the actions of Planning Department staff.
I would have appreciated getting it in time to review it. In this case, practically we cannot do it. We are not in a position to act and give them what they asked us for in a timely fashion.
Mr. Chairman, I've spoken my piece and I was very clear about it. I think this whole process stinks. From my perspective, this whole process has been mismanaged from day one. The county should have prepared a full environmental impact report on this, should have brought it before the Planning Commission and then taken it to the Board of Supervisors. And I think we ought to stop this nonsense, go back, prepare that, tell the Board of Supervisors that they need to take their good time and allow the process to go through and for public to have their day and have their say. Otherwise, we're going to do all of that in the court of law and spend $1 million of our money, which we don't have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Humboldt CPR's members come from a diverse group of backgrounds. We have united on this cause. With nearly half of Humboldt County in a timber production zone, poor decisions regarding the zoning of Humboldt County's timber production land will doubtless damage our future and the future of our neighbors. Our current laws ensure that our forests are protected and that any building on these lands will be limited and overseen by the proper state and county authorities. We are not asking for a change to the current laws, just that they be recognized and enforced. We want our forests to be protected, but protected wisely. Again, we request that the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission take action to restore the public trust in this process by removing the current Planning Department leadership and staff from the general plan update process.